The following is a sponsored episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited today to be joined by Steph Crowder, who is going to be talking about how you can fill your group program in 5 weeks. Yes, I know that's a very bold and exciting promise. We'll get into it in just a moment. But in case you are new to meeting Steph, Steph Crowder is a former sales training director in tech turned business coach who has helped thousands of people over the last decade. She teaches brilliant entrepreneurs and experts the foundations of non-sleazy sales. Yes, we can all get behind that, so they can sell out their offers every time they launch. Inside Steph's mastermind sold out group programs, her clients double, triple, and 5x or more their client enrollments. Steph is also a mom of two with a busy life full of neurodivergence and travel sports. Steph, so happy to have you here.
Ellen, thank you so much. I'm pumped to be with you today.
So this idea of filling a group program in 5 weeks sounds really exciting. I have to ask before we even get into anything else, like why 5? Why is 5 the magic number? Is this something that is just your timeline that you have realized works and you're able to kind of create a repeatable framework around it? Or was that number of weeks chosen very intentionally for a different reason?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of all of the above. I have experimented with all different kinds of timelines in terms of filling group programs along with my clients as well. And I think a 5-week timeline is a really nice sweet spot that is not so much time that it feels like it's, taking up your entire life. I mean, 5 weeks is a good chunk of time, but it is giving your audience enough time to even know what is happening with your offer, right? Especially in the year 2026, one of the things that we've noticed with our clients is people are missing our offer when we make it the first, second, or third time, right? It used to be maybe you could announce something and have it open for a week or 2 weeks and people would jump into it. But I think people have just gotten busier. Maybe the landscape has gotten a bit more competitive, and we've just seen really, really great results in my company as well as my clients to have this 5-week window where you have more time to create interest, to get people excited, to invite them, to create demand so that when you go to open the doors to your group program, you have the right numbers and the right level of excitement to fill it and sell it out every single time. So it's really about having, I think, that sweet spot of runway from a sales psychology perspective as well, getting people to the place where they're just so excited to be part of your experience.
I think that makes complete sense to me. And just to clarify, when you talk about this runway, I'm assuming this 5-week timeline you're setting for yourself and your clients is inclusive of like that pre-launch window. So are you saying that the actual open close cart is not expanding the full 5 weeks, or is it spanning the full 5 weeks in some cases?
You're correct that it's part of it. So that's kind of all inclusive. It's 5. Sometimes people stretch it to 6, but definitely 5 can be sufficient, where we have a sort of like you said, pre-launch period. We actually are even including a wait list period at the very beginning of this 5 weeks that we can talk about, where we're kind of scooping up our early excitement, getting people on board. They don't have to wait the whole 5 weeks if they're super excited. So kind of having like a VIP enrollment, but then having 4 full weeks of driving people to a super exciting sales event, whether that is a webinar or a free challenge, and then opening up that cart for 7 to 9 days on the back end. So that whole 5-week period is like soup to nuts, beginning to end, an enrollment period for your sold out group.
Thank you for walking us through that kind of process, those phases. 7 to 9 day open cart. That's good to know that that's kind of still like the general thing, but I get what you're saying, the point that some people kind of just skip straight to that 7 to 9 days and then they're like, wait, nobody showed up for my offer. So
yes,
that's very strategic. If we zoom out a little bit before we, kind of get further into the nitty-gritty details of like executing these 5 weeks, what do you feel like is, besides maybe rushing the amount of time that people have exposure to their offer, what other mistakes are you noticing coaches and service providers making in the year 2026 when trying to fill a group program? Any common hurdles that are keeping people stuck?
absolutely. I think the biggest thing that I see And it's so exciting. This is like my favorite problem to fix with my clients. I really geek out on this is they will come in and they'll say, hey, I have this group program. And by the way, when I say group program, it could be any kind of group offer. It could be a course, it could be a membership or a group program where there's some hybrid of coaching and training. And people across all industries, I'm talking ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, executive coaching, dentists, architecture software. I've had all of these different client types where they will say, I have a group. It used to sell. It used to sell well. It has slowed down. I'm doing all the same things and I can't figure out what's going on. Right. And the conclusion that a lot of them will draw is, well, I guess this offer has dried up. I guess I need to change things up on the offer side. Maybe nobody wants this anymore. Maybe I should go make something new. And before I want anyone to do that, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If it's sold well before and you've just noticed a decline in enrollment, let's make sure that it's not your enrollment system, right? So a lot of times what's happening is people are just saying it a few times and thinking, well, I put it out there and nobody took me up on it, right? So when the number one thing we'll focus on just right off the top for someone in this case is increasing the quantity of messages, the quantity of how much they're getting out in front of people. Everybody likes to talk about quality, which is great. And we want quality as far as our sales and marketing messages, but quantity is a big piece of this as well, because people will just miss it, right? So when we make sure we are actually visible in front of our ideal client for enough time and with the right message, that's how we see people going to 5x their enrollment on the first try. We see that a lot. And people are like, oh my goodness, I didn't change anything about the offer. The only thing I changed was how I'm enrolling. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make is thinking, well, I put it out there and nobody wanted it, so there must be a problem with the offer. It's actually very rare that it's a problem with the offer, especially if it's sold well in the past.
Okay, I love that you're bringing this piece up because I think novelty it's like a shiny object on both sides for the consumer and for the creator or educator or expert. Like we experience it just as much in getting bored with, what we've done. But clearly there's so many examples, of course, across all industries that show if you really refine one thing over time, over and over and again, you're going to have outsized returns. So I love that you brought that piece up. When you talk about like increasing quantity of content, I'm just curious if you have found some sort of sweet spot for either yourself or your clients in terms of that volume. And you can talk about this however makes sense in the context of, what you're teaching, whether it's like total number of pieces of content across all media channels, like social, email, et cetera, or if you want to just talk about like emails, just talk about social, it would be helpful to kind of gauge like, what do you mean by enough?
Yeah, totally. That's probably one of the things that people may find the most surprising. And it might feel a little bit at first like, whoa, that's a lot. But if we're thinking about the 5 weeks, you want to create the sensation that you're showing up daily in the email inbox, daily on your platform of choice, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Really, you want to create the sensation for people of, oh my gosh, they're everywhere, right? I open my email, there she is. I go on Instagram, oh, there's a reel that I can watch. Oh, her podcast. I like to actually increase my podcast production over my 5-week period when I do this in my own business. Really creating this feeling of, wow, there's so much good stuff for me to consume. A lot of times, I think experts and really smart business owners who have such big ideas to share, they launch and sell very kind of hesitantly. They're like, I don't want to take up too much space. I don't want to be all up in people's business. I think there's such an opportunity to flip that. I like to have the thought, being in my world when I'm launching is the best time. All of my best ideas, all of my best emails, my best Instagram posts, my best podcasts, they're always coming from the momentum of me being so excited about a launch campaign. And so I think that's one of the fundamental shifts that people need to make, which is like, stop apologizing for your selling when you're in a launch. Get so excited every single day. Show up with a new idea. Imagine the right person on the other side being like, oh my gosh, she emailed me again today. I can't wait to open this. Like, what's it going to be today? I don't think we approach launches that way, but a lot of big companies that do marketing campaigns, that's exactly how they're thinking. And so we can really borrow from that with getting a bit more bold and visible. One of the things I like to think about is selling is feminism, right? When we think about being a woman in particular, and how we're told to not take up too much space. Put your hand down, give somebody else a turn. That was always my experience in school. Put your hand down. You already raised your hand, right? We're going to smash all of that, which can be really uncomfortable for us because we're like, no, we're supposed to give everybody else a turn. I think that it's like this revolutionary act of feminism to have the audacity to show up daily and help people.
Okay, I don't know if it's just me. I'm sure it's not. Anyone listening, can you like literally feel Steph's energy come through your ears? Or if you're watching this, I guess on Spotify or YouTube, can you see it through the screen? I mean, I just feel like it is so contagious, Steph. Like, no wonder you are magnetic during your launch windows because you show up with this type of energy where it's like, what a gift I'm giving you of my time, my attention, my best ideas, rather than, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. I love that reframe. And I think that's so key. And also just to like affirm that what Steph is saying absolutely works. If 5 weeks and the idea of like creating this perception of showing up daily over 5 weeks feels like a lot to you, I just want to encourage all of you listening that when I was hosting an in-person event last fall, I literally talked about my event every single day for 6 months.
Yes.
And that amount of sustained, like, what else could I possibly talk about, right? Within these months, but it worked. It really did. And not a single person was like, oh my God, like, can you stop talking? There's just so many opportunities for people to hear about it in a different way, to get let into another glimpse of what you're creating and that you're inviting them to be part of. So I love it. Absolutely love it.
Exactly.
And okay, so let's talk about the key moves that need to happen during these 5 weeks then. So you kind of walked us through like the high level timeline of the different phases.
Yes.
What are the other key things that people can implement that are going to make the biggest difference in whether or not they sell out their program?
Yes. I think one easy framework that people can take away from this if they're thinking about 5 weeks and designing their own campaign, designing their own launch, is we can think about 3 W's. Okay. The first one I already mentioned is waitlist. So I like to kick off that 5-week period by, in advance before you get started, building up a waitlist. Very simple to do just for a couple months beforehand, maybe on your CTAs. If you have a podcast or you're on social media, you can just say, hey, join my waitlist. I've got this really exciting program kicking off in a few months. Be the first to hear about it. You'll get the best offer, right? So having the beginning of the 5 weeks be this like VIP wait list where you're giving people a little bit of an extra incentive to sign on early. It is such a fun feeling. I have had clients sell out their group completely before, like they didn't make it past the wait list, which is just incredible. They had to cancel their launch, right? So that can happen. It's like the dream.
Yes.
So the wait list period really just kind of starts to prime the pump and at least get a few sales under your belt so you can really move into the other phases with so much excitement. Like this is really happening.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
Do you advise that the waitlist, I guess, advantage really rests on just the momentum and excitement of people who want to be first? Or do you feel like waitlists only work well when there's some like monetary incentive or maybe bonus value incentive tied to enrolling earlier rather than waiting during the regular enrollment window?
That's a great question. I do think that having some kind of urgency, some kind of reason to be first is important. So for some of my clients, they've said, hey, we have a limited number of spots. Like this is going to be a mastermind program, a small group, and when they're gone, they're gone. So that can be the incentive. I've had other clients who say, yeah, you get $500 off. You're going to get the best price. This isn't going to be available. Or they get something extra like a VIP day. So I do think some urgency in some form or fashion helps people be like, I imagine that like velvet rope, they're like at the front of the line and they're just like on Black Friday at Walmart or whatever, they're ready to beat the doors down. Yes. We want it to feel like that.
Okay. That makes complete sense. Okay. Continue with your other 2 W's. I just had to jump in because I was like, I got to ask that question.
Yes, absolutely. So then moving into the next 3 to 4 weeks, just kind of depending on how things shake out, the W here is warm. So thinking of warming people up, and we are driving people to, like I said before, some kind of a launch event. So I like to do a high converting webinar, which I teach my clients a special framework on how to make them convert. or a challenge, a 5-day summit, some kind of launch event where it's like, that's kind of what we're counting down to. And so we're driving people towards that every single day across all of our channels, telling them how great it's going to be, everything they're going to get, the transformation they're going to have. But thinking of that W of warming people up. Something that surprises people when we do this stage is I also have clients, and I do this myself, we will also be talking about our offer the entire time. So you're pushing them to the event, but on every single email I write, for example, I'll say, P.S. on the training, the doors are going to open to sold out group programs. Here's how much it costs. Come ready. Bring your card. Bring your questions. I have had so many people say to me, like, I loved your transparency that like I was going to be getting it. Like you were going to be pitching me something. You told us how much it was going to cost. I know that can be people have different opinions on that, but I have found that people come qualified. They're reading your stuff, watching your stuff for 3 to 4 weeks. They come to that training knowing like we're all on the same page of what's going to happen at this training. You're going to get a ton of value and I'm going to make an invitation. So that's the second W, which is warms or warming up.
I think that is actually such a strategic move to share the price up front because it really plays into the understanding that not all people in your audience have the same buying behaviors. And there are truly a subsect of buyer personas who really do require like a minimum amount of time to really think through and process something before they're ready to make a purchasing decision. So you kind of like get that out of the way or allow them that space and that time. I think that's so smart in that qualification piece. I guess it's really no different, right, than like when people add in some sort of like minimum budget or investment on a qualification form, a booking form for a sales call for a one-on-one service. It's like you likely wouldn't get on a call with someone if you had no idea whether or not they were actually ready and serious about investing at a certain level. So why is it any different really for a group program? That's great. Love that. What's the third W?
The third W is win. So thinking about winning their business, winning their yes, right? So this is really getting us to the point where, okay, we've done the wait list, we've scooped up our hot people, we've spent 3 to 4 weeks driving people, warming them, getting excitement. Now is the big rope drop. We are making the invitation, and it's all about thinking about how to win them into your offer. So at this point, it's really thinking about one of the big things I see is we think about features and benefits when we're selling, and a lot of people are selling features. They're like, this is how many calls my group has. We're going to meet on Zoom. This is how many, if you have like one-on-ones as part of it, like this is how many one-on-ones you get. This is how many widgets you get. And that's helpful for people to make the decision. But the deficit that I see is people are not thinking nearly enough about the benefit side. So really painting that picture of what is the transformation? If I'm going to be in your group program for the next 12 weeks, 6 months, 1 year, whatever it's going to be, how is my life going to be different? Can you paint that picture for me and help me be able to picture life on the other side for myself and spending more time on that than how many little things I get as part of your program? So really thinking about if we were going to win people's trust and win their belief and get them to that point where they're like, absolutely, I want to do this. That's the third and final stage, is figuring out how to make that happen.
So key. And I love how easy it is to remember these 3 W's. So again, wait list, warm, and then win. And I know that you have found the most success and you teach your clients how to find success with building up to a big sales event, like you said, whether that's a challenge, whether that's a webinar. Do you ever advise someone to do this entire 5-week window, but have the traffic just drive straight to the checkout, the sales page, rather than leading to some sort of live or interactive sales event? And if so, in which cases might you recommend one over the other?
Yeah, that's a great question too. To me, I think it really comes down to gauging demand. I have had clients be able to just do, not have an actual event. And we have to really have some evidence that people really are. If you think about what a launch event or a sales event is doing, it's educating people, it's showing them what's possible. It's really a part of the sales process. It's moving them through those set of steps that make them say, okay, my questions are answered, my objections are overcome. I feel confident enough that I can do this. I want to do this. The sales event is doing such heavy lifting across those categories that 9 times out of 10, I personally do recommend that. However, there are outliers. For a client of mine, the one that I mentioned, who's repeatedly sold out with with just a wait list, that would be like a great example of an indication that the demand is there, right? It's like she didn't even need a launch event because there's like not even enough spots to go around. So I think if you're going to skip that, you would want to know that, like, have some evidence. Oh, I have a really long wait list, or I have a lot of people who have opted in for more information, or some indicator that would tell you, yeah, if I open up the doors to this thing, people are going to be about it.
That makes sense. And speaking of like indicators and kind of being able to discern, your own unique circumstance, what do you feel like people need to have in place before they even try to fill a group program? Like, what's a sign that they're ready to do this, and sometimes even ready to do it in a shorter timeline than maybe they've experienced before, like the 5 weeks that we've been talking about here?
Yes. Yeah, that's really important, because if you're still working on audience building, you have a small audience, the numbers may just not be on your side to be able to, like, for example, so much of the 5-week process that we've talked about relies on having some people reading your emails and having, a following somewhere. Probably not as big of a following as you're imagining. I mean, I think if you even have 500 people paying attention to you across platforms on email, Instagram, et cetera, you can really execute this process and do it well. But for a lot of people, what I recommend, if you're listening to this and you're not in that situation, don't be too disappointed, because launching with a 5-week process is just one way to fill a group program. Another way is doing it scrappy way. This is something that I teach my clients as well, where you can just think to yourself, can I find 3 to 8 people using my network? We call it shoulder tapping or reaching out, like personal invitation, where you can, this is actually how I recommend a lot of people get their very first group off the ground. If it's your first time doing it, is just go to the people, go to your previous clients, go to whoever, and just scrappy sell them into the group. No big launch necessary. Just say, hey, I'm thinking of putting together a group. We're going to work together for 12 weeks. This is going to be the point A to point B that we're going to do together. And I'm looking for my founding clients, right? Like, who's in? And a lot of times my clients will do that the scrappy way one time. We work on collecting testimonials, and then they're ready to go to the big sort of public 5-week process. So yeah, I mean, people really overlook, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not ready for a group yet. If you can think of 3 to 8 people in your network that you could invite right now, you're ready to do a group program.
I think that's so true. And I can absolutely attest to how impactful that is, even as an established entrepreneur, right? I have an established community, and I've been in business for 8 to 9 years, and still I will do personal outreach, direct invites when it makes sense to. So I don't think anyone's ever like too advanced to do something like that.
No.
So I really love that you give people that option as they're still working on building the foundations of their community, which also, as you were talking, Steph, it kind of made me think, even if someone follows your 5-week timeline and does the full blown, launch event or launch campaign, and it doesn't necessarily pan out exactly how they thought, that process in and of itself, that 5-week window of showing up with that much consistency, is an audience builder.
Yes.
So it's like, even if you don't have the audience yet, just by the nature of doing this work, you will make strides and progress in that audience building. So I think you kind of come out of this winning either way,
Yes. Yes.
just whether or not the end outcome is delayed maybe in the timeline. And so I absolutely love that. I was wondering, is there a shift you're seeing from one-on-one towards group offers right now that you feel is driven more so by this narrative of, once you reach a certain level with one-on-one work or a certain level of revenue, it's like almost like you have to graduate into group offers? Is there ever a situation where you feel like maybe it's not right for somebody to do group offers and they should actually stick with one-on-one? Just kind of curious to get your take on what's driving that shift.
Yeah. It's interesting, inside of Sold Out Group Programs, my mastermind, a lot of times getting booked out with one-on-one is a milestone along the way to filling your group program. Plenty of my clients are making that choice, and we train our clients on exactly how to get booked out with one-on-one as well. Getting booked out one-on-one is such a great idea if on the I always bring it back to the finances for this one. Financially, if you're like in a position where you're like, I got to make the numbers add up. I want to make as much money in the business as fast as possible and create a runway for myself, which is something I recommend as a business coach. One-on-one is often the fastest way to do that, right? You can make
Yeah.
the money really stack with 5 clients, 6 clients, whatever your number is that you want. So a lot of times our clients will do that. And what's really cool is as you're booking out one-on-one, you're also building demand. So my clients who've transitioned from one-on-one to group have been super successful when they book out one-on-one with a wait list, because then that can kind of spill over into a group. And then their group launch is just like chef's kiss. It goes so well. That's a path a lot of people take. But sometimes a lot of people will be like, other folks will be like, I have a day job that I love. I'm not in a hurry to leave, or I'm financially supported from some other revenue stream. I want to make money, but I'm not in a position of like financial pressure. I have more time to experiment and for this to work. Those folks, I'll say, all right, you have more options, right? You could do one-on-one if you want to get the experience, or you could just go straight to group. I have plenty of clients who've never done one-on-one a day in their life, and that can be really surprising to people. It can take more time to build things up. But again, if you have the financial backing and you don't need it on any certain timeline, you can go straight to group if you want to. So I think it comes down to one thing I always like to say is having 3 to 6 months of financial runway. That money can be coming in from any type of source. Having 3 to 6 months in that bank before you go out and do a big launch is really great for the nervous system. So you can say to yourself, I'm okay. No matter how this goes, if I crush it, amazing. If I don't, I'm not hurting. That's a really good place that you want to be in to do a big public launch of a group.
Oh, that's really great advice. I don't know if anyone has ever answered the question from that perspective before. So I really appreciate you bringing that financial discernment to the conversation as well. I think that's so important. To wrap up our conversation today, Steph, for someone who's listening right now and they're excited to apply this, they want to test it out. They're like, okay, 5-week timeline, let's go, let's try this. Where should they start this week? And then how should they work with you to really help guide them in their, attempt at this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a great place to start, well, first is the decision. Do you want to do the scrappy group? Do you want to go just like, I hope that there's at least one person out there right now who's like, you know what? I'm up for the challenge. I want to try to find 3 to 8 people just by tapping people on the shoulder and putting it out there. Hey, I'm thinking of doing a group. Like who can talk, like, let's co-build this together. Right. Yeah. So that's one thing you could do today if you wanted to, or if you're like, I like this 5-week idea, I want to give that a shot. I like to reverse engineer it from the sales event. So I think that would be the starting place, is sort of like, if you're going to do a webinar, if you're going to do a 5-day challenge, what could you teach, right? Like, what would your people be so excited to join? If you imagine 100 people or hundreds of people coming to your free event, design that and then back yourself out 4 to 5 weeks from there. And you can kind of start designing the promotion for it. For people who want to hear a whole lot more about how we do this, I actually have first of all, my podcast is called the Courage and Clarity Podcast. I talk a lot about this stuff, but I actually have a free private podcast right now, which is called the Sold Out Standard. It's all about how I went from honestly like no clue how to do group programs to scaled sold out groups, and how my clients are doing it as well. You can go to stephcrowder.com/secret and start listening to kind of the behind the scenes of how we do group programs in my world.
Okay, first of all, I'm like obsessed with private podcasts right now. It's
Yes!
my favorite way to consume new information in, just like a really flexible manner. So please, if you're even a little bit intrigued, make sure you download this private podcast and listen. All the links that Steph mentioned will be below in the show notes. So make sure you check that out. Give it a listen. Steph, where else can people continue to connect with you after this episode?
I would love to chat on Instagram. That's where I hang out. I'm at Hey Steph Crowder, Hey, Hey Steph Crowder. And then, like I said, my public podcast is called Courage and Clarity. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. I'd love to hang out.
Amazing. Add it to your queue so that you can have that in your weekly roundup of shows that you listen to. Steph, thank you so much again for joining us today. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you in next week's episode.
Thanks, Ellen. So fun.